Right. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Needham Park and Rec Commission for Tuesday, May 26th. Before we get into the director's report and other part of the agenda, there is a disclaimer that I need to read, and I apologize that it has not been done in the past, but going forward, this will be read at the beginning of each meeting. As a preliminary matter, this is Christopher John Gerstel, Sr., Park and Rec Commissioner Chair. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond with the affirmative. Cindy Chaston. You have an I. Michelle Geddes.
Aye.
Aye, okay. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Stacy Mulroy.
Aye.
Angela O'Connor.
Aye.
Kristen Wright.
Here.
Since we don't have any anticipated speakers, we will move on to the next part. Good evening. This is the opening of the Needham Park and Rec Commission meeting. It is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. I apologize, I have to scroll down. Don't have this memorized. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspended the requirements of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of the public bodies are allowed to and encouraged to participate remotely. I apologize, I gotta scroll down, there it is. The order allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participants is required by law. This meeting will not feature public comment. For this meeting, the Park and Rec Commission is convening by Zoom app and posted on the town's website indefinitely, identifying how the public may join. For Zoom meetings, please note that this is a meeting that is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and take care not to share your screen of your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the meeting's recording. All supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Meeting business ground rules. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, question, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. For items with public comment, after members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment as follows. The chair will first ask members of the public who wish to speak to identify their name and address only. Once the chair has a list of all the public commentators, I will call on each by name and afford 3 minutes for any comment. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. And that is it. All right, let me pull up the agenda. Bear with me. All right, let us now jump into the director's report. So Stacy, what do you have for us?
All right, can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. So for the director's report, for the updates on COVID, we are continuing to work full-time, mostly remote, and occasionally we are starting to head into the office for cleaning out of the lower level at RRC or doing some minimal work in the offices starting on Wednesday. Every staff member is designated a day to head into the office if they need to, and that has been coordinated with public health. But again, we are working mostly remotely whenever possible, and most of the time we only head in to work on the storage area. Spring programs, programs and events have been canceled. There'll be an update in the program report after the director's report. Parks and Forestry as a team is up to full capacity and are working diligently and tirelessly on our fields. For the pool, we're working with the procurement team to execute level 1 bid, and Kristen, if you want to chime in, I believe it's going to go out this week. High five, Chris.
Question.
Kristen, is that
So
correct?
great that the procurement's working on this, but oops, sorry.
Chris, you go first.
I'm sorry, Kristen, go ahead. With the procurement team, have we let Weston and Sampson know that we are going with level 1, or do they have to wait to hear from that team? They have to wait, like, because I'm concerned. I don't want to fall off their calendar. Weston and Sampson.
They will get the, they're going to get the draft of the contract that's going to be executed, and then they can either sign the contract or not.
Okay, but they do know that we are proceeding forward, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we've been in contact with them the whole time when we were working through the bid documents in level 1 through 3, that whole thing. So,
did they indicate how quickly we can get on their calendar?
we can't speak to them again until we have a contract in place. They have to sign off on a contract before we can schedule.
Okay. And what are we looking for a time frame for that, just for knowledge?
To execute a contract?
Yep.
Hopefully end of this week.
Okay, thank you.
That answers both questions on there, Kristen. Thank you. And the dredging project, the latest report is attached at the end of this email. At the end of this commission packet.
Okay, perfect. Anything else, or any comments, concerns, or questions by the commission? Commissioner Chaston, any questions, comments in regards to the director's report?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I have a couple of questions if I could ask. The first item, the COVID-19. Stacy, do you have any idea how long before government personnel or town personnel will be back in the office, and how long before in-person meetings can take place? Is there any time frame on that you've seen?
The only thing that we have right now is we have our process for phase 1. So as long as the governor is in phase 1, this will be our process. Every department head had to file a report about what our next phase is going to look like, and so ours is, each person, full-time staff member, has 1 day where if they need to access the office, they can. That is aside from the storage and pool area that we are accessing more regularly now. But there's no time frame. It's just, this is phase 1 and this is what we're doing. My gut says that as we push into phase 2, then we will amend those to be more frequently. But right now, everything I have says, even if we're in the office, everything is video conferencing or conference calls for all public meetings and all staff meetings.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chair, can I ask a question about the pool bid?
You may ask as many questions as you would like.
Okay, so Kristen, if we are able to get a signed contract this week, right? So say we get it by May 29th, what do you think that Weston and Sampson would be starting the opening process immediately, or is your sense that it will be pushed out further into June?
That is a question of operations between Weston and Sampson and the town. I'm sure there's phased, like we'd have to make sure we're following phase 1 guidelines for anyone that's in our facilities. So I'm not sure how that would be impacted.
Okay.
I'm gonna chime in.
We don't
you.
know what their schedule looks like either. I mean, that's as soon as there's an executed contract, they get the contract, they have to review it with their legal team, I'm sure, and then it has to be signed. The town is trying a new digital DocuSign program, which is new for the town. It's not something that we've done in the past, and hopefully this does quicken the process. And when I was talking to Tatiana and Cecilia, Weston and Sampson is one of our more trusted vendors. We've used them for many projects, so this is they feel pretty good that they're testing this particular thing with them, versus somebody that we don't necessarily have past history with. If Weston and Sampson's ready to go and our side is ready, then I would speak or let Angela or Stacey chime in about what our timeline looks like, should be ready and prepared for them to start. But it's as fast as Weston and Sampson would be able to do it as soon as they get the contract back from their team.
Okay.
My hope is that they're going to get this by the end of the week and execute it pretty quickly. Seeing how next week is actually June, we're still going to have to implement the phase 1 protocol, just like the staff does, that we're going to have to implement that on our vendors. So they're going to have to tell us what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, how many people are going to be here, who's going to be here. All of that has to go through town management so that we can keep on top of contact tracing. So it might be slightly sluggish, but I imagine that we're going to move pretty quickly once we get the procurement in hand.
Okay, great. Thank you. And lastly, I have a question on the dredging project. I don't think it's further on the agenda.
Oh, all right, Cindy,
sure.
before you go, Angela.
I just know that
Sure.
with the lack of staff that they're going to be able to have down at the pool, it's going to take much longer for them to clean it and to do everything that they're going to need to do. So we might be looking at like a 3-week process for Weston and Sampson to open the pool. Just so you guys have an understanding of, why it would take so long.
What would be the normal, just to, apples to apples, like if this was normal times, how long would it usually take them to open a pool?
It took us two weeks last year to open.
Okay. So just adding on an extra week because of the restrict. Okay, nope, that's manageable.
Yeah, and then it will depend on the water quality if we open to the public and how fast that we can get that turned around.
Okay.
Okay.
We can jump in more on the pool discussion when we get to discussion items. I've had some conversations with public health too, so we can get more in depth there.
Okay, good. No, that's good. Cindy, you had one more question, I think?
Right. I have a question, maybe more of a comment on the Rosemary dredging project. I saw today that there were some questions on the Needham Facebook page, and it looked like our information officer, I think, is the one who provided information and links to the person asking the questions. A couple other people chimed in, but I was hopeful that our staff saw it and read it. It looked to me like the information was correct, but I would not be the expert on some of those engineering things. So I would hope that our staff, if you have a chance, could take a look at that if you haven't seen those comments.
Well, thanks for bringing that up.
Kristen pointed it out to me this morning, so she did see it as well. So we are taking a look at it.
I did, and the information has been provided. This is a report that you guys see every meeting, is provided on a weekly basis online under that dredging project link that was provided by Cindy. So that is accurate. It did link to the Restore Rosemary page, which is not a town-run page. It's a private resident page that they created for the restoring of the Rosemary Lake and Brook. and which has some information that is not pertinent to directly to the dredging, but it did. And then there was one question about if it affects the pool that did not get answered. So we can probably get them an answer, or if one of you wanted to answer how it affects how the dredging affects the pool.
Okay, the question I
Okay.
saw just was, is the pool safe? I think I didn't question what the question was about, but thank you. I appreciate that you folks have seen it.
Okay. Any other follow-up questions, Cindy?
No, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Geddes, any questions, comments, or concern in regards to the director's report?
Nope, all my questions were answered.
Okay, perfect. All right, next item, I know it's not on the agenda, but it is in our packet. If we can get an update from the program report, Angela, that would be great.
Do I need to unmute you?
No, I got it. So another calendar may be thought of with the Cath. And can you scroll back up so I can see it? Thanks. And with Needham Youth and Family, it's been talked about, but we're not sure if we're going to be doing it. Alyssa Kentz from Beth Israel is now on part-time. Her hours have been cut. So the like some of her responsibilities that she was working on towards the superhero training stuff with the doctors, all that stuff is on hold right now. Obviously, because she's got to work on other things. So our activity bags, great news. We've partnered now with the schools at High Rock. Pamela Ronan is one of the school counselors at High Rock, and she has joined with all the other counselors at all the other elementary schools in Needham to help us out with this project as well. Cradles to Crayons hasn't been able to help because they're really more focusing on the food and hygiene stuff to give out to the greater Boston area. I talked to the co-founder of, or the founder of Rafe Nova, Marissa, who is actually a Needhamite, and she's generously donating 1,000 of these decorate your own masks to put into our activity boxes. And on top of that, she's also offered to provide masks to our lifeguards as well if we do end up opening.
Oh, that's great.
And she's also offered to put some kind of tagline on our mask for the guards and our logo if that's what we want to do. She wants to help out as much as possible. Sudbury Farms has donated the 200 bags for us to put our stuff in. And then you scroll down, Stace.
Keep going.
Yeah. And then we're hoping to open registrations for the activity bags on June 8th. Kristen, is that correct? Was that the date that we were aiming for? I think it was definitely the 8th.
I believe so.
Okay.
That sounds right.
And then the schools have asked us to wait until school is over, just so it's not a distraction to the kids while they're trying to finish up, because it's hard enough as it is, they're saying, to get the kids to sit on their classes. So they wanted to, you know, have this as something to look forward to at the end of the school year. So we're gonna honor that. And then, you know, we've been thinking ahead, brainstorming on other virtual activities, same thing, trivia night and all that stuff. And then if you want to scroll down, some of the summer stuff that we've been looking at is also, you know, the hiring, interviewing, all that stuff is still on hold. We're still at a freeze. We're working on, you know, the virtual program and the capability to transfer over if we need to. The other thought we've had is, you know, possibly doing the playground instructors, placing staff at fields so kids can come and our staff can monitor them socially distancing. And we have a meeting with building maintenance this week. Actually, it was just scheduled today on the possibility of utilizing the schools for summer programs if we're going to go that route. Some of the questions I have are, you know, Arts in the Park and Children's Theater. Are we gonna, you know, hold them? What's our plan? I've received a layout for the parking lot at Memorial from Tom Sarno to be able to look at it and how we can socially distance and designate, you know, the 6 feet social distance measures using parking spaces or possibly social distancing circles on the fields. But we'll look at that when it comes time to figure out what we're going to do.
Okay. All right, thank you. Questions, comments, or concerns by the commissioners? Cindy, I'll go back to you again in regards to the program report. Any questions?
Uh-oh.
We lost her. Why don't you go to Michelle until Cindy gets back?
Michelle, any questions, comments, or concerns in regards to the program
Cindy
report?
can't unmute herself, I don't think.
Let's see if we can do
Oh,
this.
I got.
Unmuted.
Oh, there's
I'm
Cindy.
back. Come back. And I'm
Oh,
unmuted.
she looks like she's live.
Michelle, did you want to go ahead?
Go ahead, Cindy.
Sorry, I've frozen. Okay, sorry, I froze for a minute. I'm having slow internet too, apparently. So my question, and I don't know if you can answer it, has to do with hiring the summer staff. I know that we're in a hiring freeze, but if we are going to try and open the pool, how do we do that if we haven't been able to hire our staff? I mean, I'm just curious how you think this could possibly play out.
I can jump into that now, or I can jump into that when we get to the discussion items, because it's going to tie into pools and summer programs. Whatever's easier.
I would move it to the discussion items,
Okay.
if that's okay.
If you'd rather do it, okay, that's fine. Then I actually don't have any questions. Thank you very much, Angela, for the program report. I think the best possible things that can be done at this point with the limited resources. So thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry, I didn't delete the activity box part of it.
It's all good.
Not a problem. And I'm sorry,
Michelle,
Michelle,
do you have any questions?
before, did you have any questions in regards to the, I've lost my mouse.
No, and Angela, just, it sounds like we're just keeping things on hold until we know what's happening in the summer, and then we would be looking into more options for summer programming, more creative options for summer programming, depending on what we ultimately decide.
Yeah.
So I know, like the trivia night, there's so many things that you can do virtually now, which I've come to realize through a lot of things that I've been doing through work. So if we were eventually different programming, so I would be happy to brainstorm ideas and platforms if we are going to do that come the summer.
Yeah. Thank you, Michelle.
Okay. If nothing else in regards to the program report, let us now move into the second item we have on our agenda, being the action items, which would be the only one, the picnic tables at Greens Field. That I know we've all seen the reports out there, and we've actually seen it being in the town that the town is now allowing outdoor eating at certain areas in the town, one being the town common, second one being, it's not Garrity Way, but the area between Needham Bank and the James. And I know there's a name for that, but I just can't think of it off the top of my head. And also there's the common up at Needham Heights that the select board and town management has reached out to us about the possibility of opening up a fourth site being at Greens Field. Stacy or Angela or Kristen, if you would like to please, go a little further into this. I think this is a great idea, but I want to have an open discussion with the commission and the staff of what we think of the possibility of this happening.
Sure. So the town manager approached me about picnic tables at the Greensfield, and obviously because it's under our jurisdiction, you guys need to vote specifically, especially if you want to allow alcohol consumption at these tables. This process would be, the tables would be there through the summer, obviously depending on the phases of the field and the activities going on in the field, going in and around the field. So the idea for the Needham Center is that it'll be there until September, the tent and the tables. So this is a summer-long suggestion that they are putting into place for this summer only, or this summer so far. I shouldn't say only. The select board voted to allow it, the other ones already. We have not put up picnic tables yet because we didn't want to put up picnic tables without the without your vote, especially on the alcohol, because if we decide not to allow it, we're not going to put tables up at all, because it will just create confusion in the community that you can purchase and drink alcohol at the center, but not at Green. So we didn't want to do that. So we're waiting on tonight's vote. Chris, I did email you the motion that the select board used, so that if the commission wants to use that for Greens, it's in your inbox.
Okay. All right. While I look for that, I will take any comments from the commission. We'll go people by people. Go to Vice Chair Cindy Chaston first. Comments, questions, please.
Sure. I think it's a great idea. I went by the town common a couple of times over the weekend and people were there. The tent was a little smaller than I pictured it, but there were lots of picnic tables around that were not under the tent also, and it looked like it was being used the 2 or 3 times I went by. So I have a few questions. One, I would like to know if we have any feedback on how the weekend went, if there were any issues and how the trash and all that went. I don't know if you folks have had any feedback yet, but if you have, I'd love to know. Secondly, do we have to permit this field? Are we giving a permit to anyone to have alcohol there? I assume that this is all under the auspices of the town, not necessarily under Park and Rec, even though Greensfield is under our jurisdiction. Secondly, thirdly, who is monitoring? Do we know that our police are excellent. I'm sure they are doing lots of drive-bys or walk-bys, whatever, but do we know that there is somebody who will be doing that at Greensfield as well? Those are my questions.
All right. Well, first one is I have not heard anything over the weekend about the process. Can you guys hear me? It is a rough internet day today.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So no follow-up that I've heard over the weekend, but sometimes no news is good news, so I'm going to take that one. As far as permits, we are not issuing any permits. This is going to fall under the umbrella of the town in conjunction. So we're not permitting anybody in particular. We're not going to permit any establishments at all. So it's somewhat umbrella permit for the town. And lastly, It is described as a clean up after yourself process. So the police will be policing the area, but the tables and things are supposed to be cleaned up by the users and wiped down by the users.
With what?
They are supposed to bring their own Clorox wipes and hand sanitizer before using the tables and then cleaning them up afterwards.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have one follow-up question, if I may.
Yes, please.
Do you suppose that if we think it's not going well, or that we can ask that perhaps the tables be removed, or I mean, do you think, is there some mechanism, I imagine there is, where we can go to the selectman or the town manager and say, you know, we're seeing something that we don't like, whether it's an activity on the field or damage to the field or whatever, but is there any mechanism for that, or do you think it is just kind of an informal, we raise our hand when we're not happy with it?
Cindy, I directly asked that question if there's going to be issues, or, you know, we have some disorderly conduct on our sidewalks as opposed to in our cars all of a sudden. And when I spoke with the town manager, she said if it becomes an issue, then we will deal with it head on, and if need be, roll it back entirely. She's hopeful that won't happen, and she feels pretty strongly about it, but I did ask a direct question, like, if this becomes an issue, can we revoke? And she seemed very open to having that conversation if it becomes an issue.
I think one of my concerns,
Okay, all right, thank you.
having the playground there, and I feel as though it's inviting parents just to come and play at the playground with their kids. And our playgrounds are closed until phase 3. So I don't know how we'd be able to police that, because it is a small park. I know that people will be driving by, but it's not like we can clean our playgrounds if the kids decide to go play on that while their parents are eating dinner.
The
Now-
playground is separately gated
Right.
and
Now,
still
also,
locked.
isn't the area, I'm sorry, Chris, I didn't mean to cut you off, but isn't the area that they're proposing is closer to the Great Plain Ave? So if you're picturing the park, it's that area before you even get to the baseball diamond. So it's that walking area closest to the YMCA and that area. So it's a little bit further away. It's not right next to the park, the playground.
Chris, just to confirm, there wouldn't be any picnic tables on the actual field. It's just that the little area where there are currently 2 benches and the little
Correct, yep.
sidewalk that goes through to the.
Yep.
So it's just that area.
I will actually
Nothing would.
send it to you. I'll send it to you right now, the planogram of where they want to do it. Cindy, you had it also, correct?
Oh, I'm muted. Michelle, you're muted too. I'm sharing the map of the
Oh,
proposed.
perfect.
Yes,
I see.
I
So
had,
it's okay. Sorry, go ahead, Cindy.
no, I was just gonna say that I had seen this initially, yes.
So yeah, it's that little area prior to even getting to the baseball field. So it's literally, if you're on Great Plain Ave, it's right off the street. It is far away from the playground in St. Joe's.
Is the playground on this map? Am I missing it?
No.
It's,
Oh, no, it's way further
it's not
higher
on
up on that map. You can't even see it on that diagram.
So
Oh,
behind
is
this
it?
baseball field station is the basketball court, and then behind the basketball court is the playground.
Thank you.
But Angela, I agree with you. I do think that, and it is gated off. It can be locked. The front gate can be locked. You can I'm sure you could maneuver around the back where the hedges are, but it'd be difficult to break into the playground. I'm sure there are people that would, but I would say little kids would be more difficult.
Well, and if
Which
we
is good
lock
because
it,
I agree with you.
a
Angela.
message about what we want. If people, and we have experienced this, people will still get into places even when they're locked, but we are setting a very clear message that it is closed, and just because you can squeeze in between the gates doesn't mean that you didn't know it was closed.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
The chair recognizes Cindy Chaston.
I haven't been over to by that playground recently. Is there signage? Is there signage down there that says it is closed? Plenty of signage, so it's very obvious besides the lock. Okay, thank you.
Yes, and I think we should, one of us can swing by and make sure that the signage hasn't been pulled down and ripped off, and we can replace it. That it has been happening. We have been noticing things that are being ripped off and opened and whatnot, but we can continue to put the signs up even when they get ripped down to make sure people are aware. And I would also ask the PIO that if you guys vote on this and agree to it, that we put very specific language in about what is supposed to occur on that field, what passive recreation means, that the playgrounds are still closed, basketball courts are still closed, all of that before those picnic tables go out. And even perhaps laminate some signage on the picnic tables so that it's very clear.
Good idea.
Greensfield is not on the phase until phase 4, which would not be available for passive recreation until the 15th.
Which, sorry,
Which
this
feels
is
nice to get the
Michelle.
sign out now.
Michelle Geddes. Well, that is there a reason why we chose that? Is that because of, sorry, I'm not following protocol. I have to say my name. What else do I have to say before I have a question, Chris? Sorry.
The chair
Cindy was
recognizes
following
Michelle
the rules
Geddes.
and I
Go
wasn't,
ahead.
so I was like,
Don't worry, don't worry.
I know.
You're
I was like,
only supposed to do it one time. You have to do it.
every time.
So nobody's done it yet, but you only have to do it.
Okay. It was the reason why Greensfield was not included on phase 1. Was that because of because of the work that needed to happen on the field, or was that just our phased approach? Because it feels like if we are having the tables there, we're encouraging people to come out by then saying, but the park is closed, don't step on it. Having a closed field mark just feels like we are out of touch with reality by just not allowing kids to use that space. So just trying to understand why we would not include that earlier on.
Good question. So would you suggest either waiting until phase 4 of that opening of the field, or would we bump up Green's Field that we can coincide with opening it up this week and asking a favor of Park and Forestry to say, hey, listen, we really kind of want a Green's Field bump up on the list because of this request?
I think it's a matter of bumping it up, given the request
Okay.
from the town to have the
Okay.
picnic tables added. I mean, when we came up with the phasing approach, this was not currently on the table, so it was just a change due to the request of the town
That is
to have the picnic tables.
Good
To hop
comment.
in. I think that's a great point, Michelle. What I'd like to do is, and we can word this into the vote. I'd like to touch base with Eddie to find out why he put greens on at the end, and if it just was happenstance that it ended up there, then we can bump it. But if there's a particular reason, I would like to find out what that is before we go and, like Michelle said, put tables out there and encourage people to be there. I think we should touch base and find out. And I think we can word that into the vote.
The motion, yep.
The motion, and just say, based on Eddie's, conversation with
Approval.
Eddie, then approval, then we can move it. Otherwise, we can hold off until that field is ready. And if he thinks that there is some work to do, but he needs to get to it, then maybe we could, instead of tomorrow, it could be in a couple weeks as opposed to phase 4. But I'd like to get his feedback on that before we push it forward.
Okay. All right.
I agree. And I also
any
think
other-
any work he's wanting to get done would be disturbed by people being on the fields anyway, whether or not they were permitted or not. I know Eddie's been very conscious about not having to kind of fight people off the fields in order to kind of get work done. And I would worry that even if we didn't move it up in the priorities, that, you know, it would restrict his ability to get work done on the field, I think, having the picnic tables there.
Okay. All right, any other questions from the commission, being Cindy Chaston or Michelle Geddes? Okay.
No.
I think, Michelle, that was a fantastic comment in regards to the fields opening. Cindy, also great comments, and I apologize if I missed this. My only concern about this is the trash. We have barrels out there right now that if we do open this up and say it turns into a big success, are we going to have the capability of managing the trash that's going into those local bins? I know we're going to say carry in, carry out, but it's going to be very difficult to manage something like that, that people are going to just out of happenstance go to those receptacles. Is the recycling transfer station on par with maybe picking up the schedule, or maybe going there a little bit more frequently dealing with the trash? Because we have problems with trash normally throughout regular times. Now we're putting this in here, you're going to have more trash. Will the town be able to keep up with that management?
RTS has been in the conversations about this. They are aware that this may pick up regardless of the fact that we are calling it carry in, carry out. They are aware they're going to stop by those bins more often.
Okay. Nope, that's it. Just to hear that, it helps me. Personally, I think this is a really good idea. I think it was a great success over the weekend. Again, I didn't hear any negative feedback from it. I know we're in the infancy stage of it, and it's going to happen. And I think it's just going to get better. So I think this is something that is the right direction that we need to go, in my opinion. So any other questions, comments, or concerns in regards to the action item? All right, hearing none, what I will do is I will make the motion with the caveat that we talked about with Ed Olsen. So hopefully this goes smoothly. I would like to make a motion that the board vote to authorize the consumption of alcohol as defined by Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 138, Section 1, that has been sold in association with takeout service of food pursuant to Chapter 53 of the Acts of the 2020, Section 13, at the Town Common, the Needham Heights Common, Avery Square, and Eden Plaza, and Greens Field, under the provisions of Section 3.1.9 of the general bylaws of the town, also contingent on approval from Park and Forestry Department and Ed Olsen's guidance of opening up Greens Field earlier than on phase 4 that we had previously selected.
That it?
That's it.
I will second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other comments in regards to the motion? All right, hearing none, I will take roll call for this action item. Vice Chair Cindy Chaston.
Aye.
Commissioner Michelle Geddes.
Aye.
The chair is also aye, so the motion passes fully.
Thank you. Just as a follow-up, Rick Merson is one of our attendees, and he just emailed me that trash pickup is being proposed 7 days a week at all of the picnic table locations.
Perfect. Telric, thank you. And if you would like to speak, he's more than welcome to. I will recognize him if you would like to comment further.
That's fine, but we want to keep this a short meeting, right?
Yes. All right. Action items are completed. All right, let's now move on to discussion items. A, pools at Rosemary Recreation Complex. Stacy, what do you have?
They're closed. Moving on.
Yeah, okay, yeah, great.
So they are still currently closed, and they'll be closed, through the end of the month, end of June. The thing that I had a conversation with Tiffany and Tim today from Public Health. They've got no new guidance. Big surprise. They don't expect any guidance to come along until June 8th at the earliest.
Okay.
But one of the things that we talked about was what we need to plan for if we're going to open. So what we have come up with is a 4-week turnaround time for programs and a 6-week turnaround time for pool. That is from the date of guidance. So that if we get, if the governor says on, July 30th, you can open camps, we've run out of time. Now, if he says in phase 2, you can open camps, then we've got some time to work in staff training, staff interviewing, programming, all of those things. We have discussed various options for the pool and various options for the programs. Nobody has any guidance, and everybody in the surrounding towns is sort of waiting and seeing. The problem is, and this comes up to the staffing point, is we're running out of time and we're losing staff. And Angela can speak to this more than I can, but our program staff are starting to get other jobs and let us know. We haven't heard as much from the lifeguards side of things. But these guys are teenagers, and, Starbucks is open and Dunkin' Donuts is open, and now they can make money and they don't have to be bored at home all day. And we can't offer that quite yet. I have set up a meeting with HR tomorrow to start discussing the ability to have conversations with these staff and talk to them on a contingent basis, whether or not we open. Because regardless at this point, although I'd like to know today, we're going to be programming something. Either it's going to be in-person programming or virtual programming, and we need people at this point, regardless. I think the pool is a separate entity when it comes to programming, but I do have a conversation. Like I said, public health was, we don't know. There's a lot of towns. I mean, Northborough just pulled the plug on everything from now until October. They just posted it. We are keeping track of the pools in the area that are closing and the camp programs in the area that are closing. MRPA is doing a great job of keeping track of those things. But there's still a lot up in the air and there's still a lot unknown. We are going to do our best to program for the what ifs, but we need more help. Because virtual programming looks a whole lot different than in-person programming.
Question to ask, and please correct me if the dates are wrong, that the Board of Health in our town has closed all camps and programs until at least Monday, July 6th, correct? Or around that time?
Yes, officially it's June 30th, but we wouldn't start anything until Monday, July 6th.
Sure. So if you were to back up those 4 dates, we would need, and if you said it's a 4-week period for programming, we would need to know by next Monday of what we're doing.
Exactly.
And if we're 6 weeks out for pool, again, that puts us in the second week of July.
Chris, we're 6 weeks now, certainly, for the pool, because, I mean,
Oh,
we
yeah.
haven't even started it. So the earliest really we're looking at anything is mid-July at this point.
Okay.
But again, we don't know when phase 2 is going to start. We know that pools in some capacity are in phase 2, if and when we hit it. We don't know, and camps are sort of on the cusp of that.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I had more information. Trust me, it'd be a whole lot easier to guide the staff into programming these things, but there's just not a lot out there.
Can I just ask a quick question? So, and again, let's play, everything is going perfect. So say next week, June 8th, we do get some good news saying, all right, listen, camps are going to be open. and we start, counting that 4-week period, would, as the Park and Rec Department, come off the hiring freeze?
That's going to, my hope is the answer is yes. And
Okay.
I can't confirm that until tomorrow when I talk
Sure,
to HR.
right. Okay.
But that is going to be my push. The other thing is our programs aren't going to look like our programs. They're going to be very different and potentially much shorter.
Okay.
We batted around a few ideas with public health and, need to have conversations with the staff at large, because that conversation was at 5:30 tonight. So I think it's not going to look like it did last year. None of it.
Not expected to.
Yep. So hopefully my conversation with HR tomorrow will go that we can start having these conversations with the full-time staff and reach out to the part-time staff and start getting their programming brains working for us.
Okay. So even entertain me even more. So when we talked about the pool for 6 weeks, Angela, you had mentioned if we do get the contract out and everything like that, it's going to be at least a 3-week period of when we could have that pool open. So we got a little, I don't want to say wiggle room, but I mean, if it's 6 weeks to get staff in there, we're already built in that 3 weeks of opening the pool and ready to go. So it's not like it's 6 weeks to get staff plus an additional 3 weeks to open the pool. That 3 weeks to open is factored in that 6 weeks. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Perfect. No, just
And
want to
I'm
make sure.
very conservative with my numbers because I don't want to put out anything that we have to go back on.
Nope.
But those are very conservative numbers.
Okay. I agree. Glass is half full.
Stacy, you're getting clarification tomorrow from HR what would allow you to move from being frozen to being able to hire.
So currently we're not only are we on a hiring freeze, we're on an interview freeze. So we haven't even really been able to have conversation with these guys and say, if we open, we want you under contract. My hope is that after tomorrow's conversation, we can at the very least do that and potentially move past that point. But we at least need to hook these guys and say, we want you, you're great, we need you.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know when, but it's a definite. Before we start to really, because if we wait too long to reach out to these guys, we're going to lose them.
Okay.
And, a lot of the other directors in the surrounding communities are we're losing our staff too. Again, lifeguards seem to be hanging in there, kind of waiting. But the program and summer camp counselors, they're jumping ship because they're bored. They've been home way longer than they typically are. And they want to make money and they want to do something. So
Okay.
I can't fix them, but we're trying to keep them with us because we've got some good staff from what I hear.
We do. All right. Cindy, questions?
Yes, thank you, Chris. I do have some questions. So it would seem to me that it's key to find out if we can hire people, because if HR comes back and says, no, you're not coming out of the freeze, then that's kind of the end of worrying about programming, right? Because we're on starter. So that seems to be the most critical question.
Yeah, I think if they
find out.
say no, you're still frozen, then we try to push for all virtual stuff, or we focus on the programming for virtual.
Okay, so can you take me through two things? One, I understand the pool and why it would take so much time to open the pool. Can you take me why it's a 4-week turnaround for programs, just so I understand it? I'm sure you're right. I'm not criticizing it. And then 2, you say programs will be very different than what they've been in the past. So could you tell me how? I understand some social distancing, but give me a little bit more. If you say very different, what does that mean? Will we not run playground or cricketeer and all that stuff? So those 2 questions to start.
Sure, I will start answering and then I'll have Angela jump in on this for me. So as far as the 4-week turnaround and the 6-week turnaround, obviously we've talked a little bit about the pool stuff, so I'll focus on the programs. Basically, Cindy, if I found out tomorrow that we can open camps, we're in a hiring freeze. We need to interview more people because we haven't interviewed enough. We need paperwork in, we need training in. we need protocols in, we need background checks in, all that stuff. Plus we have to figure out how to, you know, teach like the new protocols around COVID stuff. So cleaning, disinfecting, social distancing, not to mention CPR and first aid, which is harder to do, to train because we can't train them all at the same time. So that, and getting them on payroll is just it's a process. And so if I found out tomorrow we were a go, it would take me that much time. And again, those are concerns. So maybe it's a little bit sooner, but maybe it really takes us the 4 weeks. Because also when it comes to getting these guys on payroll, we're also at the mercy of HR, who we're not full-time yet. We're not in the office every day, neither are those guys. So how much they can process outside of the office, we don't yet know, because the whole town's been on a hiring freeze.
Okay, no, I remember how difficult it was to get 4 extra lifeguards on the payroll last year, and we jumped through hoops at the end of the season just to do that. Okay, so how will programs be very?
Unlike in typical years, there's a trickle effect with payroll. Like, you know, some people get it in early, some people get it in late. Now it would be everybody at the same time. So they'd be bombarded. So that is my best guesstimate.
So Cindy, to answer
your
how very different it would be, you can only have 10 like a group of only 10. So, and then you're looking at 8 kids, 2 counselors per every 8 kids. Not only that, you're looking at that small of a group in one room. And so most of our programs have 30 plus kids in them. So now you're looking at taking the 8 kids and, you know, those 30 kids and now divvying them up into 3 groups, 3 different classrooms, 3 different, you know, 6 staff for that one group of 30. So now you're looking at additional staff, you're looking at more cleaning. Those groups of 10 have to stay in their little team or group throughout the duration of the program. They can't play with other kids. They can't go into another classroom. They can't do any of that stuff. And in between everything has to be cleaned as well. So you're looking at additional time, which is why I really look towards thinking outside the box, is looking at stuff that we can do outside. Because being outside, you have the UV light, you have, you know, which is supposedly, you know, supposed to, you know, cut the duration of corona. And then just having that fresh air. I know that rainy days would really suck, but, you know, we just wouldn't hold program on a rainy day. But, you know, really trying to think outside that box, because being indoors is probably not a good option for us. Just because they also, ventilation is also a key component to everything. You have to have a certain type of ventilation. You have to have, you know, air coming out. Bathroom situations, your groups have to have, you know, certain bathroom times, and all the bathrooms have to be cleaned in and out. Water fountains can't be used. So there's so many different components to having our programs be different. Sorry if I went into a rant.
Okay, no, that helps me a lot. That, because I'm thinking about playground, for example, where kids just show up and play at the playground.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to what parents and families going to do this summer. I mean, because they must be at their wits' end with having to work from and not having classroom time for kids. And what are they going to do this summer? And maybe not being able to go away on vacation. So anything we could do to help. So one last question on the programs, and then I will yield the floor. What do you think is the drop dead date for you to run any programs? Like, when do you need to have answers so that you could run a meaningful program? Is that July 1st, July 15th, August 1st, June 15th? What do you think? I'm asking for an opinion, just an opinion. Yeah.
We're not gonna hold you to the date. Just
I don't think,
Curious what,
I don't think, what was the question, or what was the word that you?
Drop dead date.
No, not quality programming is what.
Yeah.
I don't think what we're really trying to do is we really need to try to figure out how we can help the families in town.
great.
And I think that needs to be our focus, and what we can do as a department to provide some sort of relief for these families, and especially the parents that are going to have to go back to school. So I don't really know what our drop dead date would be, but I really think that we really have to think outside the box and what we can do to help our community in respect to that.
I think that's an excellent point. And one of the things that I was kicking around with public health today, and again, Angela and Kristen, I'm about to bring you up to speed right now, is talking about the timing of camps, not just the start date, but like instead of a full day camp, maybe we do, because, you know, all kinds of towns are doing surveys. Like, if we run camp, will you send your kid? And I think the surveys are skewed because parents are like, hell yes, please take my child.
right.
But when you start talking about what we actually need to do to keep them safe, you know, it's a whole different animal. So one of the things we were kicking around today is it, instead of a camp, is it a 2-hour drop-in? And like, we have 3 sessions. We have a 2-hour session in the morning, and then we have an hour off so the staff can clean and do whatever. And then we have a 2-hour session in the middle of the day, and then we have an hour off. And then we have another 2-hour session. So like, kids can come with their water bottle. They don't need a backpack. They don't need a snack. They don't need all their stuff. So there's less things to be touching. And we, you know, if you take away games like kickball and soccer and capture the flag and dodgeball, it's going to be real hard to keep these kids entertained for 8 hours. But if for 2 hours, we can do it. And that actually will give some relief to some parents. It's not going to be great for everybody, but it could be something that we have to go to, especially as we get further and further into summer and we run out of time to run programs. Maybe we start running these sessions. So there's a lot of options so that we can do something for the public in the community. But that's what I meant about it looking very different. Maybe it's not a drop-in program, because the drop-in program relies on the kids interacting with each other, which we want to distance, which is really hard to do with little guys. So these are some of the things that we're starting to kick around about how to offer options for relief.
In terms of pay, Bethany, you nailed it right on the head with, and Stacy too. Like, it's a 2-week in a normal condition turnaround for payroll. So I think 4 weeks is smart, and I would not expect it, depending on where the guidance goes, if it's a little bit longer than that, but minimum of 4, I think.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Yep. Oh. Michelle's good?
It's okay. No, that's okay.
Okay. The only question I have is, and I know way overthinking this right now, do you think either the town or we have to come up with some sort of a waiver if we do any programming, or if we do open the pool of some sort of something that's out there?
Yes. It was suggested
Yes,
to
thank
me that our waiver should say, a parent has to sign off on a waiver that says, I understand my kid will not follow directions, and I do not hold you accountable if they go near other kids.
Just like that, one sentence?
Just
Love
that's
it. Love it.
End of story. No, some people are requiring, like, during drop off to prove that your kid has a mask, that, you know, there's
Sure.
going to be a lot of regulations. There's also going to be the temperature situation, although it's going to be hard to define. And if the day happens to be 90 degrees and you're dropping your kid off, that they may be 100 temperature, like, that makes sense. It's 90. So we're gonna have to figure that out. But yeah, there's gonna be more regulations and more parent signatures, regardless of our, you know, what our status is with the Board of Health. So Yes.
And we would try to execute this via online than actually physical signing of waivers.
100%.
Cool. Nope. Good thinking. Like that. All right. Discussion items. We kind of combined both pools and summer programs. Are there any other questions in regards to either A or B? None. Okay, great. Discussion items, fields. I have to commend again the staff. Great way to communicate on Friday, how to get everything out. Do people follow these rules? Not necessarily, but I want to say the communication was excellent on getting out. So I really do appreciate everything on that. The only request, and I apologize, I just commend. All right, you guys did a great job. The only question I have is, I know that we had talked about getting the field status alert. It could be just me, I didn't re-sign up for it this year. Did a field status alert go out today stating what fields are open and what fields are closed?
Yes, but we took you off the email.
Appreciate that. I'll re-sign back up.
No.
I don't know. Kristen?
No.
No, we're working on it.
No, we just opened, so I didn't realize we wanted to do it every day. I can certainly say that the tennis courts in Memorial are open every day. It's gonna be what it is.
Right, I mean, like, because I think we discussed, like, you know, each week the message is going to be consistent. So it's literally just cutting and pasting. Monday's message is the same as Tuesday's. Tuesday's the same as Wednesday. That when we get to the end of the week or we get to the next phase, that's when it needs to be adjusted. I mean, is that still a capability that we can get that out? Again, communicate as much as we can to these people. That's what we need to do. If it's by text or email, I know everyone's getting a lot of them, but we need to get it out.
And Kristen, if this is something that we can have Kim do to take anything off your plate, then we should talk about that at our team meeting tomorrow.
Okay.
Do we have a team meeting tomorrow? We do, right? Nailed it.
Every day you should have a team meeting.
There's
Cindy and I have a team meeting every day.
Yes. Cindy and you? I'm so sorry.
How are we doing on the phases? That I know that also another thing I want to bring up, when I was voting today, that I did notice that Newman only had one tennis net up. I guess the others are on order. Can we get an update, say, by next meeting of what's going on? I mean, I know there was no social media outcry, but just something that I noticed, that I saw one, you know, court being used and everything else closed. So I wasn't sure if we can get an update on that, please.
Kristen?
Yes, they're on order.
They're on order. As soon as they come in, we'll get them up.
Perfect. Perfect.
There's also a broken one at the high school
Of course.
that we are also replacing.
Okay. And I know that we are kind of in the clutches of everything is on hold for orders and POs, but if we can get a kind of follow up on those, just so we can at least, we know for a timeline of when these are going to be up, that would be great.
That one got pushed through as soon as it could, so hopefully we should get it sooner rather than later. Ange?
I approved it this morning when it came in.
I still don't get those emails. Okay.
No,
Better you than me.
it's gonna hit you next. I can.
All right. Cindy, any comments in regards to fields?
No.
Okay. Michelle, fields.
Nothing
Nice.
from me, thanks, Chris.
All right. Now we're cranking through it here. All right.
Wait, I have a thing on fields. Sorry.
Yes, go ahead, Stacy, please.
So one of the things about these fields is, I'm not going to put a percentage on recording, but many people are not following the rules. So, and there's postings about people using things the wrong way, not using masks. I mean, you guys have seen the Facebook pages. Anything you can do to help the staff, like if you're driving by and you see some yahoos out there, what I like to use is the word, and I'm stealing this from the NRPA, is we're encouraging people to follow our rules and not kicking them off, and we're not, we're just reaching out to them and saying, listen, this field's closed, you can use this field, or hey, there's 25 of you sitting and playing Duck Duck Goose, you have to move along, you cannot play this game. Anything you guys can do to help the staff, our staff, as well as Park and Forestry, because as we open up more and more fields, it's going to get harder to tell people. They're just going to go wherever they want. There's already people out there. I mean, we were Saturday morning laying down tape at the track for the one-way arrows in the wind. It was totally great. It was wonderful. And there was like people out there running on the track, which is not open. And like, did we kick him off right away? No, I asked him to finish what he's doing and then leave. But people are already out using the fields. You guys know it. Any chance you can help us out? The police have become more empowered to stop people and talk to them, which is great. But we could use the help of the commission as well as the staff to do that. So
I know, and I can't speak for the other commissioners, but I mean, I'm lucky enough to work from home that if I have to take my hour lunch break to go to certain fields of the ones that seem to be the biggest instigators, you let me know where to go and I'll be there. And I have no problem enforcing the policy, encouraging the policy.
Right, Ange? It was encouraging versus enforce.
It was.
Yes.
Sorry, I will
If it gets
encourage
out of
as
hand,
much-
then you can call the police and they can enforce it. But I mean, you'll get, most of the time you end up with a little bit of lip and then people go on their way.
We'll get you
That has been my experience.
that says encouragement officer.
Okay, please don't make those, except for Chris.
I will encourage as much as I can.
Thank you.
We do have to enforce though the
Thank you.
people wanting to teach private lessons on our courts
Yes.
and teach lessons in general on our fields as well.
Mhm.
So that's something that we're going to have to look at, just because if we don't stop it, everybody and their mother's going to start offering lessons on the courts, on our fields.
Mhm.
I feel like that's already starting. That's the buzz.
It's already
of,
been
like,
happening before this.
Yeah.
And so one of the things is our laws say that we don't allow any private lessons of any kind on any fields. But what people are seeing now are focused on is like, well, it's less than 10 people, so it should be okay. Forgetting that it's also in our bylaws.
Right.
Kristen saw a bunch on one of the Facebook pages. I don't know, all of them. Our blanket responses, hey, it appears that you don't know our rules and regulations. Here they are. We don't allow private lessons. So we're doing a very blanket, hey, in case you didn't know, here are the rules and regs. But as far as social media, that's as much as we can do because we can't go after these people. We can just keep telling people, we don't allow this, we don't allow this, we don't allow this.
Ask what kind of groups are you seeing? Is it mostly tennis or are you seeing stuff on the fields too?
In the last 48 hours,
And
there's been a post about lacrosse, tennis, baseball, field hockey, and dance.
Oh, and
Wait, what was it? Dance?
Yes, and I didn't look all day. This was from, I looked at it, I saw some last night, I saw some this morning when I saw the dredging posts and things like that. I'm not, as someone may have accused, I'm not trolling Facebook all day. I'm looking at it every so often, and we do respond to things, and point people in the right directions, and I share things. I shared the voting thing this morning, and I share the update from the town page every day, just so that our people are seeing that consistently too. So I have a list, I have the contact of who has posted the post, and I plan to reach out to them and basically say, hey, just so you know, it's against protocol. You may, because the thing is if they damage the field, there's a problem.
Yep.
If we have to wheel it back, there's a problem. And then if that's a problem, then the permitted users, the ones that do pay for the fields to use the fields in a general, they might be delayed even further if anything happens to the fields. So it's kind of a catch-22 of, again, encouraging, but this is actually enforceable. Like they can't have private lessons on public property according to the laws.
is there one field more than another that we should be looking at? Because I was at Memorial Monday afternoon and there were people out there, but they were not big groups. They were not close together. I mean, they seemed like very small groups. So Monday afternoon, I didn't see anything at Memorial, but that's the only field I went to.
That's the one that's open, so that's the only one should you see anybody, but.
Yeah. Right. But are there any fields that have been particularly problematic?
They didn't list fields, so these are just private residents. I hope. I don't even know if they're residents of Needham, but they're posting on the Needham MA page, basically suggesting that they're offering. And of course, parents are very interested in that because their kids they have been cooped up, and you can't fault them. But we have to make sure that we're not damaging the fields and the facilities that we do have for our permitted users that hopefully will get on the field soon. So. I think if we can encourage our user groups again to send another messaging, basically being like, don't do it. It's not worth it. It could delay our season even further because, you know, we have another cricket incident where somebody's damaged our field. Like that's not playable right away. I mean, that's why cricket's in phase 4. So
this is not new. I'm sure you know that, but this has been going on since before I was on the commission, and we used to have look at that. The puppy.
Look at that that's a stuffed animal. That's what that is.
Puppy.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry.
No, he's so.
Sure you didn't.
We had a football guy who taught football, and he would post it on his website, but he wouldn't post where the practices were until the night before. He was doing clinics, and he was very tricky, and he moved around from different towns, but he was in Needham a lot, and we had trouble catching him. But Mike Gretzky and Dave DiCicco were on the case, and they were after him because he was running this football camp and clinic, making a lot of money. But he was on our fields as well as Westwood and Newton, and he's probably still around, but we haven't seen him lately. So this is not new, but it is really annoying, very annoying.
And yeah, it's also a liability for the person. If they get injured on our field, they could absolutely come after the town, and that's not okay either. Like.
Okay.
I do think that the people that are showing interest in this are not aware of the policies, and I do feel like they would be supportive. The majority, I think, of people in the town would be supportive of the fact that that is not allowed if they were more informed. Because I saw several people that I know of that I think if they really thought it through, that they wouldn't consider it. So I think it is just reinforcing the policy and what's expected.
Well, they're also young too. The ones that have been posting it are, recent grads, college kids.
Yeah.
They're not,
Question I have, and I know Commissioner Tulin kind of brought it up at the last meeting. What about if we edited the policy for this year? I know currently right now, we don't allow it. But if we were to maybe reach out to these user groups to say, hey, listen, we know you're doing something wrong, and explain what the policy is and said, listen, due to now what's going on, we would, reconsider maybe suspending the policy that we have or editing the policy that we have to at least maybe start collecting some money out of this, maybe getting a user fee out of them. So the damage that they do, we're at least doing something because we know they're doing it. It's very hard to be at every field at every single time. And I'm not saying open up the floodgates, but what about as a starting procedure, reaching out to these groups and letting them know what we think about it and see if it is a possibility. Instead of shunning them away, why not kind of work with them instead of against them?
I think what we would have to do is reach out to them and say, it looks like you have a great program. Are you interested in running those under Park and Rec? Because I think the town's liability and legal counsel don't want private entities out there on our facilities running programs because of the, concerns about safety. But we can certainly reach out and say, hey, looks like you have a great program. Are you willing to do this? We'd be happy to run it through Park and Rec and do the registration, and then they're covered under our insurance. But as a private vendor, I think the legal team would be concerned about that. And
the only problem is these people that are putting that stuff out aren't vendors. They're doing it solo and
without insurance.
Yeah, which would mean that we would have to hire them, and we're on a hiring, so we can't hire them and we can't do the paperwork. So
there's that too.
There's all that fun stuff.
And also you open a can of worms, like, I think it was the Blue Lotus group was the last meeting, allowing private vendor, like private for-profit organizations to permit. I think that's a different scenario completely, because at the same time, the reason that we don't permit to profit for profits is because our nonprofits don't have enough time on the fields as it is. And so now you're gonna permit to a profit organization, but not a nonprofit organization that has been supporting the town in the fields for eons.
So I would say we would probably make some guidelines and be specific on the fields and be specific on the times. Like, listen, and I'm just using CrossFit as an example. Say we reach out, or one of these things is a CrossFit, and we say, all right, listen, from the hours of 7 a.m. till 9 a.m., you have Brock Field. That's where you can do this, and we would permit something like that. But throughout regular, times from 3 o'clock on, when the high school would be there or school programs would be there, and then our nonprofit programs would be there after that, that's our time, that's their time, that's the community time. If someone wants to do this, we would limit the fields, we would limit the time that they would be able to do this.
I think it's a good conversation to have, but I also think we have to be aware, like right now, we're not permitting anything. So nothing should be happening anywhere, no matter what.
I agree.
As we move through the phases, I think it's a conversation. And do you want to jump in?
Yeah, just like if a vendor works with us, like Stacy had said, and falls under us, we usually get $10 to $15, regardless of how many people, like each person signs up. We get a $10, $15 kickback to us. And we should be able to permit them because it falls under us. That's just my own personal opinion. It's our fields. We should be able to do what we need to do in order to run programs through our department on our fields. And we should be able to permit that. And that way we are not kicking out nonprofits. We're not kicking out anybody else. We're still, getting that kickback from those vendors, and we're providing a program for our community at the same time.
Agreed. No, I think it's worthy having the conversation. I really do. But Michelle's got to get her dog.
Yeah, she left.
I guess she didn't like that comment.
She's done.
All right.
So-
Anything? I'm sorry. Well, there she is.
Well, I just looked at the Facebook page, and there's a young man, relatively young, I believe, pretty young, who is offering baseball lessons. He
I
does
saw that too.
care, right? So maybe he's got some place. I'm just kind of wondering where he's offering those lessons, and he doesn't say where. You'd have to message him and all that, which I'm not going to do that. But it would be interesting to know where he's offering these lessons. He's a former baseball player, so I'm sure he's good, but he's not offering it through Park and Rec, so I wonder where he has a baseball field to play.
Is it the Oakland A's and the Seattle Mariners? That guy?
That would be him.
Yeah.
That would be him, yes.
That's the one on my list.
And he may be doing something that has nothing to do with our property, and everything is great, but on the other hand, I would just be curious where he has a
Where is he doing it?
Right.
Okay. No. Again, great comments. Anything else in regards to discussion item C, fields? Okay. Last discussion item, probably just some project updates. How did the town election go today at the complex?
No news is
Okay.
good news. There was no staff. There was no staff in the building except for the polling staff.
Got it. All right. I'm just going through my notes here of things that I have. Any of the other commissioners have any questions or would request project updates under discussion items?
No.
Oh, I do actually have one thing. Going to fields. I know that when we talked about phase 4 is going to be the school fields. Have we reached out? Do we have the blessing of the schools? I know it's something that we kind of want to just let them know what the phases are. Have we reached out to them to let them know? Have we heard anything back? Do we need to reach out to them? I mean, I think we were doing it out of courtesy than anything.
So I have a conversation with Tim and Kate tomorrow. So I'm going to touch base with Kate and then reach out.
Got it.
So that everybody's on the same page.
Okay, got it. Now, I don't want to be the jerk here, but if they say no, how bad does that put us in? Or do they even have the power to say no because there's no school in session?
That's a great question. I'm hoping to find out the answer tomorrow.
Great question. There's the first. All right.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I doubt they will say no unless they have a very good reason. I don't think they will be unreasonable. But you know, if they have a good reason and they say no, then we'll deal with it.
Okay. All right. Anything else in regards to any of the discussion items that we talked about? Any commissioner, Cindy, Michelle?
No.
Nothing. Okay. All right. As we go to this topic number 4 here, we'll crank through these issues not reasonably anticipated by the chair within 48 hours. I will yield the floor to the commissioners first before I go through my notes. Cindy, anything you would like to bring up, or Michelle? Cindy first, please.
Thank you. As the staff, have you heard anything about town meeting? I mean, I think the warrant came in today's mail. I have not looked at it yet. You know, with the coronavirus, I don't open my mail for like a day, and I can't, unless I'm really anxious, and then I just open it. So my protocols at home are not very strict, but I haven't looked at the warrant because I wasn't around today. Is there, 2 things. Have you heard anything about the logistics and what it's going to be like? And then secondly, any articles left that would affect Park and Rec besides the budget?
So town meeting is going to be held on June 8th, which
Yeah.
means we also have to decide what to do about our meeting, which is also that night.
Oh,
It's going to be June 8th at 5:30 at Memorial Park outside.
Are we under intent? No, probably not.
No.
Intent, okay.
Tents lessen the circulation. We need circulation to avoid COVID, so no tents.
Do we have anything, I know, and again, I haven't looked at my warrant packet article either. We don't have anything up, correct?
I need to look through it closer. I skimmed it. Kristen, do we have any warrant articles?
So the only ones that we had outside of our budget are the ones that were tied to CPC, and those were all voted to be moved to October.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have nothing major.
We didn't have any capital or anything else.
All right. Okay. That was my. Thank you.
Okay. I know in the past we've always kind of met prior to town meeting if we had anything that could be brought up, but since there's nothing being brought up, we can discuss. We're going to have to move the meeting, but I don't think we need to meet prior to town meeting because there's nothing on the docket for us. Okay.
Agreed.
Michelle, anything that you would like to bring up for nothing reasonably anticipated by the chair or the commission?
No, the only thing was to recognize the message that Commissioner Tulin had raised, the email regarding.
Yes, that is one of the things I had on there. And I know Stacy and Kristen, I think Angela, you're on that also. That Commissioner Tulin was talking with his neighbor in regards to what about the possibility of having such a movie night outside, like the drive-in, at one of our larger parking facilities.
Yeah, so we have been batting that around internally already. It's a great idea. We need to figure out logistics.
Yep.
6 foot, just because you're in your car doesn't mean that we still can't, we still have to be 6 feet away. So it is a conversation that we've had, and we will continue to have. So I think we're going to try and push for it this summer at some point. DeFazio seems like a good place as far as parking goes. One of the things that other towns have been doing is coordinating with a restaurant or two and having them deliver to
Dinner and a movie.
Dinner and a movie. So we will try to coordinate something. But yes, so we it's a great idea, and we will certainly think about when the best time to do that might be. And
okay.
I know we have a screen. I don't know if it's big enough for, I don't know how big it is. I know it's in, but but there's also a company out of Norwood that does these things on a regular basis. So we could also do that. The thing is, then it becomes, do we charge? Do we not charge? Do we put this for the community? If we hire a company to do it, that's a whole different story. If we want the movie to play on people's radios in their cars, then we have to have an outside company do it, which may be the best plan, but then we just have to decide funding and whether we throw it to the community as a freebie or we charge a nominal per car fee.
we will look at the cost.
Yeah.
So, no, I thought it was a great idea.
I do believe Parent Talk has done this in the past, haven't they? Have they had a movie night?
They've done flicks on the field, but not a drive-in. Yeah.
Right.
Where you
It's a bigger square. You just can't use 2 speakers to kind of
Right. And
project the
so
sound on that
backyard, I think it's called Backyard Movies out of Norwood. Is that right, Ann? Is that the vendor?
I don't know if they're out of Norwood.
They're in Norwood because they're in the office park. But they can set it up so it comes through like your AM radio station.
Was
That'd
that
be cool. I think that I would love to see something like that.
Go
Again,
ahead,
giving
Ange.
back to the community and the times that we're in.
And
Was-
what did you say?
was that backyard one?
Yes. I think it's called Backyard Movies or something. They're at all the conferences.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Michelle, anything else?
No, I was just wondering what you do about facilities for that, like bathrooms, and how
We would
you
have to-
handle.
That's part of the
that.
logistics. Yeah, how do we do that?
Because not having one, it's so unpleasant. Yeah, it could get ugly. If there's
That's
not
why
enough
we
of that.
would not go phase 1 on that.
Yeah.
And we
Oh,
would
yeah.
have to try and figure out and potentially porta
Later
potties
in
for
the
that
phases.
specific
Yeah.
event.
Agreed, yeah.
You know, there's a lot of options. But
There's bathrooms at the Fazio and there's bathrooms at Memorial that we could open up, so we're not utilizing porta potties.
Mm-hmm.
Only because they're saying that the porta potty stuff, the COVID can be,
it can live in the tank
yeah, it can
as
live.
opposed to a place where it can be flushed.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Too much info.
Yep.
That's
But
why we
thank you, though.
porta potties.
Mr. Chair, can I ask one last question?
Just because you asked so nicely.
Thank you. What are we doing arts in the park this year? Have we canceled it? I'm just thinking of it right now. Have we done anything about it? Do we have any plan for that?
Kim is, that was part of the program report. Kim is reaching out to all of our Arts in the Parks people right now to see if they still want to participate. You know, some people probably won't want to, only because of the social distancing stuff. But we've also looked at Memorial Park and how we could socially distance that way. And we could potentially either plot circles on our fields, which I don't think Eddie would be too fond of, but
Right.
we can utilize our parking lot and utilize the parking spaces. And people can park up on the hill if they choose to and walk down, and we can open up the parking lot to for the handicap spaces and also for the group homes that come in their van. And you know, we could number the parking spots so they set up their picnics there and potentially have people, you know, restaurants deliver there as well.
Okay. Thanks, Angela. I'm sorry, I missed that in the program report. I should have picked up.
No,
Sorry.
that's
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else from either of the commissioners on the call? Stacy.
Just going back to the commission meeting, which is scheduled for June 8th, which is town meeting now. It is our next commission meeting. So would you like to bump it 4 weeks, or would you like to move it to the June 9th, the Tuesday, June 9th?
I would, if that's okay, I'd like to move it to June 9th. I don't think in the times we're in, we can't move it out 4 weeks.
I agree. I just want to put it out there that we should make that decision now so that I can, that we have, because it's the next one.
No, that's fine. Yes, if you can
So
move
June 9th?
June 9th, same time, everything.
Got it.
And one thing, if you don't mind, I'd like to bring up, and I know in regards to the beginning of the meeting, we have not been doing the disclaimer. That will be going forward. We will be doing that. I'd like to kind of get back on a little bit of normalcy, that if we can schedule every Wednesday prior to a meeting, that the chair or the vice chair speaks with the director to go over the agenda items for that upcoming meeting, that would be great. If we can put it in our calendars, it could be a phone call, it could be a Zoom, whatever it is, even if it's a 5-minute conversation or an hour conversation. If we can get back on that of scheduling time that we're all consistent on the agenda, that would be great. And if we can also request that all packets be delivered to all commissioners by end of business of the Friday prior to the meeting, that would be appreciated. Just because there could be certain meetings that we got a lot to digest, that if we could look over it over the weekend and kind of look through and maybe come up with questions and items, that would be great. So I call upon the staff and the director to adhere to those policies, please, or requests.
Will do.
Okay. As I'm looking through my notes. Okay, well, one last thing. And I'm hopefully not putting the cart before the horse, that today was election day and I have not seen the results, but we did have a candidate to take over for the Park and Rec open position. Fingers crossed that if he does get elected, how do we want to send the message to the select board that the candidate will now be joining us and that Mr. Toolin will be taking over the rest of Commissioner DeChico's tenure? Is that something that, Stacy, you would like to send, or is that something that you would like me to send, including you, to either the select board and town manager? How would you like to communicate that out?
I believe it needs to come from you, Chris, to the
Okay.
select board, and then copy myself and the town manager.
I will do that on it. Like I said, we'll wait for the results to come in, and then I would like to get this out, you know, once it's official, get it out as soon as tomorrow morning.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. Anything else that anybody wants to bring up for topics for future agendas? Don't all jump at once. All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting of Tuesday, May 26th of the Park and Rec Commission.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, Commissioner Chaston,
Aye.
Commissioner Geddes.
Aye.
Motion is approved and adjourned. Everyone have a great night. Thank you very much.
Thanks.